Don't worry. Let me get more light
Carregando.
here.
Estamos ao vivo, sabe?
Okay. Well, good morning for the ones who are in the morning, afternoon for the ones who are in the afternoon, like our special guest, or evening, if we have anybody in the evening. So it is with great pleasure today that we hear the group ILF Brasil-UFBA has as its a special, very special guest, Dr. Juliana Souza da Silva. I'm very, very happy to say that this gives me great pleasure because Juliana is one of the founding members of this group when she was still in the undergraduate course here at UFBA. So then when we see our students progressing so much and so fast in life, not only personally, but also professionally, this gives us great pleasure. So then Juliana is still in London, but she's coming back to Brazil soon. And I'm going to tell a little bit about her and then pass on the word to her. So Juliana did her undergraduate course in English here at UFBA and also her MA. And I had the honor and the pleasure to be her supervisor or advisor. And then she has just finished her PhD in London with Goldsmiths University of London, where she wrote a beautiful dissertation or thesis on English as a lingua franca and interculturality. So, and she was supervised by a dear colleague and friend, Alessia Cogo. And so the purpose today is to have Juliana talk about this work, this research work that she conducted for her PhD degree. So Juliana has written several texts. She's a very specialist and careful observer of what happens in the English world in terms of English as a lingua franca, and has always been this fantastic student, colleague, and researcher. So then it is with great pleasure, Julie, that we all welcome you here. She's been with us a lot also during the other presentations. So now, finally today, we have her as the main presenter, as a special guest, talking about this beautiful and enlightening research work. So Julie, welcome. I hope you, when you come back to Brazil, you join us all the time. And we hope this thesis probably, and I'm sure it will, produces lots of interesting articles, and maybe you can even publish it, as I'm sure it has the quality to be published. So welcome, and the floor is yours. We'll be here listening to you attentively. Just to remember, everybody, just to remind you that we will take questions from the audience, both here in the room and also from our YouTube channel. So please write your questions, and we'll be very happy to share them with Julie, and she'll be glad to answer, okay? So thank you very much, Julie, welcome. And we are all listeners. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sávio. Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. It is a huge pleasure to be joining the meeting, not only as I did in the past many times, which is watching and participating, but now to share my research with you guys. This group, ILF Brazil, is the group where I fell in love with research and where I fell in love with ILF, right? And Sávio has a big role, a great role in this, because he is always creating this environment where we feel comfortable to ask the silliest questions and never feel like we are all that silly when we're asking. We always feel like everything that we have in our minds matter. And I think this is an amazing place to be. And I felt very lucky to be part of the group, and I still feel like I am. I hope I will be for a long time. And thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you guys for joining as well from other parts of the world, different cities, my friends watching from other places that I know that they're here on YouTube. Thank you. I would like to invite you to say hi on the chat and say where you're watching from. And yeah, I'm just gonna now set up the presentation. While I'm doing that, please say hello and write your questions whenever you want. And I will try to answer, and we will have a conversation at the end. Because that's the most interesting part, isn't it, for me as a presenter, is to find out what you guys are thinking and how you're processing the information that I'm sharing. So can everyone see the slides?
Sim, Julie. Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right. So as you can see, this presentation will be a summary of my thesis, which was titled Lingua Franca Negotiations of Cultural Understandings to Build Friendships, Interrelating Intercultural Awareness and Pragmatic Strategies. I was supervised by Alessia Cogo at Goldsmiths University of London, and I was funded by CAPES through the program Full Doctorate. So during this presentation, you'll see that I'll be referring quickly to my notes, but that's because the content is very dense and I don't want to be just rambling about things and make it too long. Anyways, I hope you will enjoy the presentation as much as I enjoyed doing the study. So just a sec. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know why it's not, okay, clicking. Yeah, so let's start the journey. In research, the departure point is the theory that supports the study, right? So in this presentation, I will look at English as a lingua franca as the linguistic and cultural context of the study. We'll also have a quick overview of Baker's model of intercultural awareness. Then I'll explain the terms lingua culture and negotiation. After that, I'll exemplify the most relevant pragmatic strategies. When we look at the study itself, I'll present the context, methodology, and a sample analysis of one conversation. After that, I'll show the relevant findings from the whole study, which had in total 7 conversations. Finally, at the end, I'll share with you some questions that the findings have raised and how I think this study could be helpful as a starting point for future research in the field of intercultural communication and ILF-aware pedagogy. In the data, you will see the participants using English as a lingua franca. So it will be important to define here what it means, right? Especially to those watching that are new to ILF. So English as a lingua franca is considered to mean a contact language between speakers or speaker groups when at least one of them uses it as a second language. So to clarify, ILF is not a new phenomenon. It's not a new variety of English, and it's not a simplified, broken or learner's English. It's not spoken only by a non-native speaker. ILF is the most used lingua franca today. It is an English use permeated by the multilingual repertoire of its speakers. It involves more complex processes than native speaker communication, and it is predominantly used between multilingual and L2 speakers of English. From a complexity theory perspective, ILF is a complex adaptive system, a language used that is emergent, fluid, flexible, and liminal. ILF is a language that cannot be predicted in its diversity. It is constantly being adapted by its speakers according to the communicative needs of each interaction. To contemplate this scenario that defies the boundaries of named languages and national cultures, Baker proposes a model of intercultural awareness, which is an expansion of intercultural communicative competence. ICA is defined as a conscious understanding of the role culturally based forms, practices, and frames of reference can have in intercultural communication, and an ability to put these conceptions into practice in a flexible and context-specific manner in communication. Divided into 3 levels, ICA is a framework for the development of intercultural awareness in language teaching, especially to those contexts where ELF is particularly relevant. Level 1 is also called basic cultural awareness, and it is the ability to articulate their own cultural perspective and compare cultures at the general level. Level 2 is also called advanced cultural awareness, and it is the ability to go beyond cultural generalizations and stereotypes and to compare and mediate between cultures at a specific level. Level 3, also called intercultural awareness, is an awareness of cultures, languages, and communication, which are not correlated and tied to any single native speaker community or even group of communities. So as I mentioned before, as I said before, ICA was conceived to provide pedagogical aims that address the cultural dimension of communication, to develop ICA within the ELT classroom. But I believe that ICA can be used beyond the sphere of language teaching. Baker explains that the individual does not move in a linear manner through the 3 levels and may revert to lower levels as well. I propose that the same individual may also display different ICA levels in the course of one conversation. So I believe it is worth assessing displays of ICA levels at the utterance level, like line by line, to investigate their impact on how we negotiate different cultural perspectives. That's why I transformed Baker's theoretical model into an analytical model. I will show this to you a little bit later in a few minutes. So as I said, I decided to focus my investigation on negotiations of cultural understandings. However, what is a negotiation of cultural understandings? Coined by Juli in 2015, the term negotiation with a capital N means more than just what we do to prevent or resolve misunderstandings. It is the key to the process whereby participants adjust their cultural ways of speaking, apply and refine their cultural schemata, and orient to, assign, or reject cultural or situational categorizations. Negotiation is the very mechanism that enables participants in intercultural and lingua franca communication to employ, mobilize, or manipulate diverse resources to achieve their goals. I think that a good metaphor for this concept would be a dance. It is a dance of adjustments and evaluations that we make when we encounter new meanings. Someone makes a move by using a new culturally loaded word, expression, or communicative practice. Then we decide how we are going to respond to it and make our own move, how we are going to orient to it. And as Julia says, orient, assign, or reject social, cultural, situational categorizations. At this point, you may be asking, okay, but what is considered culture or cultural in this study? So in short, I follow the perspective of language-culture nexus, which is divided into language, with containing language and lingua culture, and discourse, and non-linguistic communication. So as you can see there, language would be the denotative code, lingua culture, the connotative idiolectal meaning, discourse, the meaning is not linked to a particular named language. So to help you visualize this, I created this support. Let's see if it helps. So if we take, for instance, Portuguese and English as an example, there are some linguistic items shared, right, by many languages, and we can put it here, right in the middle, where you have the intersection of Portuguese and English. Of course, then there are linguistic items that carry the culture of the people using that language. And that would be the lingua cultural items. They are the language that is combined with culture. So we know that there are groups within groups, and each one will have their own lingua cultural elements. I'm just using Portuguese and English as one, like as two groups that we can think of, like Portuguese speakers and English speakers. Okay, but then you can ask me, how do we know what is lingua culture and what is not? We can't really know a priori, right? It is an empirical question. And that means that you have to look at each situation and analyze it. So what we know is that lingua culture is usually identifiable when the use of a word, an expression, or some communicative practice provokes a reaction, that somebody notices a difference. And this will be illustrated in the sample of the research that I'm going to show you. So as mentioned before, the overarching goal of this research, of this study, is to check if there are patterns in the use of strategies in how ELF users handle communication problems, preventing or resolving them. To do that, I decided that I would check if particular pragmatic strategies were used more often in the display or response to ICA levels. So here are some of the most relevant pragmatic strategies I found in my data. So starting from clarification requests, and I'll just show you some examples of what it looks like, okay? So a clarification request would be, what? What do you mean? Comprehension check. Do you understand me? Rephrasing. The big dilemma may be or might be represent or repeating what someone else said. Variety in it should be respected. Variety in itself, sorry, it should be respected. And the other person says, should be respected. Meta-discursive code glossing, which is basically defining something. What I mean is, this is meta-discursive evaluation. I think it's a very interesting question. Discourse marker or meta-discursive exemplification. States can collect data on, for example, knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and environmental indicators. So, for example, is the discourse marker indicating exemplification, right? And then you have the meta-discursive exemplification itself, which is when they explain the collect data on. And the data would be on knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, and environmental indicators. And then you have meta-discursive illocutionary acts. It's basically when people refer to illocutionary acts using words like say, ask, discuss, speak. Back channel of understanding and agreement. That it's very context dependent, because you have to look at it and see the situation to decide if it is understanding or agreement. But you have like, yeah, and okay. And finally, the research questions, right? And I have 3 research questions, and they kind of build on each other. Okay, so number 1, what are the levels of intercultural awareness, ICA, displayed in the communicative practices of the participants? 2, how do the ICA levels impact the unfolding of the negotiations? And 3, how are the pragmatic strategies identified interrelated with the displays of ICA levels? So the methodology that I used for this study was conversational analysis complemented by ethnographic tools, and that was like interviews, questionnaires, observations, documents, and then the ICA assessment chart that I created by expanding on Baker's on charts on because there are 2 sides of the ICA levels. You have one side that is the conceptual side, and the other one that is the practice orientated side. So I'm working with the practice-oriented side because that is the part that can be observed in the practices, in the communicative practices of the participants, of the speakers. So in level 1, the speaker expresses an opinion, or describes culture-related behaviors that stay at the stereotypical level. I'm only going to read the bits that are highlighted to go a bit faster, okay? Acknowledges the possibility of varied understandings due to cultural differences with demonstrations of agreement and or interest in the topic. Level 2, recognizes that cultural norms are relative, and then understandings are seen as provisional and open to revision. Highlights the common ground between specific cultures and predicts mismatch and miscommunication. Avoids or rejects value judgments, demonstrates awareness of heterogeneous understandings and practices within the same family, church, city, country, and other groups. So level 3. Level 3 refers to cultural groupings and their practices without fully subscribing to any of them, or subscribing to more than one at the same, more than one same of affiliation. Overtly despises linguocultural practices commonly ascribed to cultural groupings, with whom one generally identifies. Shows openness to and engagement in the mediation of fractioned, fluid, emergent, diverse understandings on the same topic, and highlights or shows awareness of the role of experiential knowledge in one's cultural understandings. So now we are going to be looking at the context of the research. There were 15 participants who were all part of a church community in Southeast London. I was one of the participants, which made me an outsider and an insider in the process. 2 groups had their conversations recorded. One was the Connect lunches, an activity we had after the Sunday morning services, where lunches were hosted for anyone wanting to spend time together. And the second group was a missional community, something like a church home group. Both groups met the criteria for communities of practice because they had building relationships as their main enterprise and presented a shared repertoire of practices involving that process. They were chosen for the research because they were very diverse linguistically and culturally. So here are the nationalities and the ethnicities according to what the researchers or the participants named themselves. So there was one Brazilian, that's me, white South American, and 2 Zimbabweans, Shona, 6 English, white British, 1 Italian, white Italian, 1 English, black British, 1 Tajik of Korean ethnicity, 1 Scottish, white British, 1 Singaporean and Chinese in ethnicity, and 2 English, Nigerian. So these, all those speakers, 15 of them, also had about 15 languages going on in their minds, in their brains, while they were speaking English. So as you can see, you had, of course, English, and then 3 dialects, 3 different types of Mandarin, French, Italian, Russian, Tajik, German, Yoruba, Shona, Portuguese, Spanish, and Japanese. So it was very diverse, both culturally and linguistic, the group that we had. So I also collected narratives about the communities of practice. And I collected it from the website of the church community. And the website presented photos of a very diverse group of people. Words such as informal, multicultural, and all-age church committed to welcoming people from every background. And I also asked in the interviews and the questionnaires how people would describe the main purpose of the group. And one of the participants of the Connect lunches, Paola, and this is a pseudonym, okay, said, I think it's a really, really chilled atmosphere, friendship. I think it's a way maybe to also make friends and be more involved in the community. As I said, if there wasn't the Sunday lunches, I wouldn't have gotten to know many people in the community. And Lizzie said about the missional community, to share God's love This is the purpose, okay? To share God's love, and purpose is to the broader community and to growing faith and friendships. So you can see an overall theme of building friendships, and you will also be able to see the light atmosphere and loads of laughter in the conversation, and how people are cooperative in the interactions. Okay, finally, let's look at the conversation itself. Now I'm going to show you a large chunk of the conversation so you have an idea of the interactional dynamics. It's not the whole conversation, but just for you to have an idea of how it flows, okay? So when you see the sign, that is laughter, all right? So Esther said, I just got clotted cream, because it's going with the sticky toffee pudding, right? And then there is, of course, chocolate milk. Lana laughs, Esther laughs. Jamie says, the natural progression for... Ellen says, whoa. Esther, wow, it's a perfect drink for a day like this, because it's a little bit hot and it's a little bit cold. And chocolate milk like heats you up, but it's also refreshing because it's cold. So... And Juliana laughs, Esther laughs. Juliana says, very interesting logic. Esther laughs, and James says, cold milk heats you up? Esther, yeah, my mom would say that chocolate milk is heaty. Lana laughs, Esther laughs. James says, you may want to tell us a bit more. Esther says, so I bet. So in Chinese thinking, I don't know if this is the same for like Korean culture, but like in Chinese thinking about food, there are heaty foods and cooling foods. So milk is a heating food. Watermelon is a cooling food. Tea is cooling, even though it's hot. Esther, and what else is heating? Durian is heating, for instance, and laughs. Yeah, you just sort of have to feel whether something is heating or cooling, and you have to have the right balance of heating and cooling things. And Juliana says, yeah. And too much cooling is not good for women, and too much heating is not good for men. And Lana laughs, Juliana laughs and says, what? So this is how I summarize the whole conversation, okay? So first, the topic is introduced as general knowledge and questioned. Then this way of thinking is linked to Esther's mom. Then the paradigm is linked to Chinese thinking, and it is exemplified. Then the new paradigm is engaged with and challenged. You will see a little bit of that now that we're going to actually analyze both the ICA levels and look at the pragmatic strategies that are being displayed while they are displaying ICA levels. They're using pragmatic strategies while displaying ICA levels. Okay, so as you can see there in line 3, the first thing I realized is that I needed to add a level 0 to the ICA model. Level 0 ICA was used to describe every instance where the speaker was talking about or performing a lingual cultural practice without acknowledging that it was cultural information. So for instance, when Esther says there, and then there is, of course, chocolate milk, the of course there shows she believes the reason to get chocolate milk is common knowledge, that everyone knows that. So the same approach to this topic, is taken by Jamie in line 6 when he requests clarification in the natural progression for, and Esther goes on and displaying cultural awareness in lines 8 to 10 when she says, well, it's a perfect drink for a day like this, and so on and so forth. She doesn't really say anything about it belonging to a certain group of people, this way of thinking. So it is a display of cultural unawareness. So yeah, you can see meta discourse being used and all that. So here, as we go on, there is also there are also a few displays of level 0 ICA, in lines 13 and 15, as the topic is treated as general knowledge until line 18, when Esther explains that this way of thinking comes from her mom. So here she says, yeah, my mom would say that chocolate milk is heaty. And she does that with meta-discursive illocutionary act, you see, would say. And then after that, Jamie, who is, and then she displays level 1 ICA there, because for the first time, she's referring to somebody else's culture. She's acknowledging that she is aware that there are the different types of cultures, other ways of seeing, of doing, of using language other than her own. So that's the first level of ICA, right? And then Jamie displays level 2 ICA in line 19. Just a second. Yeah, I can't find my notes, but I remember. Jamie displays level 2 here because he's predicting a mismatch between the lingua culture of Esther's mom and the lingua culture of everyone who is sitting at the table. So he's basically mediating between what Esther is about to say and the people that are sitting right there. So he says, you may have to tell us a bit more. So in line 20, Esther displays level 2 ICA through meta-discursive exemplification by approximating two large cultural groups with a possible cultural common ground, while at the same time making room for the possibility of different practices. So she approximates the Chinese culture with the Korean, but maybe they are different. So she's also making room for difference. Later in line 28, Esther displays level 3 ICA when she points to personal experience as the path to understanding what I'm calling the heating and cooling paradigm. Personal experience as a process to grasp a new cultural understanding is liminal by nature, and liminality is one of the main characteristics of level 3 ICA, right? So in this part of the conversation, don't worry, I'm not going to go one by one because they are pretty much the display of the same thing, and you will see. You see a sequence of level 3 ICA being displayed that as the participants take hold of the new cultural understanding being explained and try it out by applying it to the local English dishes through the strategy of tentative reading, which are basically comprehension checks. They're basically checking if they understood by applying it to a different context. It is level 3 because they are crossing through many boundaries, right, to apply it locally. So you have there in line 72, what about roast? Is that heating? 76, yeah, what about fish and chips? And 78, the chips would be. And then 87, pan grilled, that's the preparation, right? If the fish would be pan grilled, does that make a difference? 86, Jamie says, that's steamed or different. And then here in 87, something interesting happens. When I agree, and I say, yeah, I'm agreeing with the ICA level that was displayed just before, immediately before me. So it is an echo of the previous ICA level. Even though I'm not saying anything meaningful there, I'm agreeing. So I'm just echoing what was said before. So here in 89, there is another example of application of the new paradigm with bangers and mash, right? And coming to the end of the conversation, in line 110, there is another display of level 3 ICA where Esther highlights the need to get in the mindset, which means it's possible to refine the understanding of the paradigm through practicing it. And the conversation is drawn to a close when Jamie displays level 3 ICA by showing he is comfortable enough with the new paradigm to use it and stretch its boundaries in line 192. He says, so if you mix things together, that's the question. Do you come out as heating or cooling? And then Esther says, I don't know. And Jamie says, So they're married. So that's a fun fact. So now I organized the appearance of the displays, right, of ICA levels into something visual for you to see how it goes on as the conversation develops. Okay, so at the beginning of this conversation that we just saw, they started with 5 displays of level 0 ICA. The middle had a gradual increase of ICA levels, with most of the second half at level 3. And then at the end, we had level 3 ICA. So now I'm going to show you quickly what happened to the other conversations that we didn't really look at in detail, just for you to have an idea of what the final findings are talking about. Okay. So pudding is like pie, is it that? That's the title of another conversation. It wasn't all about food, I promise you, okay? You will see. So here, this one started with level 0 ICA, and the middle was developed starting with level 1 ICA, and then it goes up to level 3 with 1 drop before the end. This 1 drop before the end is very meaningful. Something interesting happened a few times in different conversations. There was some sort of resistance to higher level of complexity. Some people would kind of protest against more complex way of approaching different concepts. Like, I don't agree, in a way, like they're basically saying, I don't agree that this word or this topic can only be seen cannot be seen, can only be, I'm sorry. Basically, it means that they wouldn't accept multiple understandings of the same topic. They would only accept one understanding of the same topic, and it's usually theirs. So I'm calling this a resistance to level 3 and level 2 ICA. That's something really interesting that could be investigated in the future in other contexts. So not in this house, that's another one. And it started with level 3 and then had level 1, because that's basically a culture shock. And then you will see it's pretty much what I just explained, but you can see it's a cultural shock if you look at the conversation. So in the middle, you have an evenly spread alternation without level 0 ICA. It doesn't go all the way down. And then it ends with level 3 ICA. Matemba is a word in Zimbabwean, and it's a very interesting discussion about a Zimbabwean proverb. And it starts from level 3 and it goes all the way at level 3, a really high level of complexity. It's really interesting. I didn't use this one because I wanted a conversation with different types of demonstrations of different levels. But yes, it's available if you want to read it. And then you have kids is not nice to say. It started at level 1 and then goes at level 0 for a long time, where people are not really showing awareness that they're talking about a cultural topic, remember? And then in the middle, you have mostly at level 0 intercalated displays of level 1, 2, and 3, and it ends again at level 3. Notice that they're ending at level 3. And you have I'm Not a Girl, very interesting conversation, even about gender equality. And it starts at level 0, and then there is a predominance of level 1, but there are also level 2, level 3, and level 0. And at the end, you have level 3 and level 0. A fart is Trump. That's a political conversation that was really funny. So this also started at level 3 and continued with level 3 until the very end. Okay, so the relevant findings when it comes to displays of ICA, we can say that I found that I needed a level 0 ICA. So I had to create that to describe a conversation at the utterance level. So due to the utterance by utterance approach, it was observed that speakers can refer to lingua cultural items without acknowledging they are cultural, particular to a group of people. The impact of the beginnings. So level 0 and level 1 ICA initiated either a gradual increase or an alternation of ICA levels. However, the level 3 ICA initiated negotiations that stayed at the level 3 ICA. So the ones that started preemptively and started at a really high level of ICA, they continued at the high level of ICA. There was a resistance to level 3 ICA in the alternation of ICA levels. Displays of level 3 ICA often found resistance through displays of level 1, level 2 that sought to undermine the complexity or liminality proposed. And level 3 ICA endings, 6 of 7 negotiations ended at level 3 ICA with displays of acceptance or unavoidability of plurality, flexibility, and liminality. Understanding each other's views was more important than agreeing. So one thing that I forgot saying before I showed this, there are more findings, okay? But I think it's important to mention, this was a case study, right? So the function of a case study is not that my findings can be generalized. That's not possible. But the function and the value of a case study is to test theories, right? Or to expand theories when necessary. And that's what I did. It was possible to notice a pattern in the display of ICA that influenced the development of the negotiations, the negotiation of cultural understandings. So that was possible to see. And then we found this more specific manifestations and what the patterns were, right? And these patterns can be used in the future for future research. But I believe that the goal of this specific study was to lay the grounds, like theoretically and methodologically, for future research that can be based on it, right? So there are more relevant findings. And these ones now are about the pragmatic strategies, okay? Before I was talking about the displays of ICA, and now about the pragmatic strategies in relation to the ICA, because this is how we can see, like in linguistic practices and communicative practices in general, how ICA is displayed in conversation. So when it comes to preemptive work, mostly meta-discursive strategies were used and displayed most of the times a high level of ICA, which is level 2, level 3, expressing the awareness of the importance of explicitly and or critically positioning oneself to avoid communication misalignments. So there was a lot of talk about the talk, and that was usually used in high level to display high levels of ICA preemptively, okay? So as post-work, what is post-work? It's the work that happens after some sort of non-understanding or misunderstanding happens, okay? So there was a precedence of low ICA levels, level 0, 2, that triggered the use of clarification requests of different forms. Because clarification requests is just like a function, but then there are different strategies that can manifest this function of asking for clarification. And then you have here the strategies in displays of ICA. A majority was, there was a majority of illocutionary acts and simplifications when displaying high ICA levels, level 2 or 3. There were code glossings, which is basically defining things. Yeah, they were used more often in displays of low ICA levels, level 0 and 1. The back channels of agreement were predominant after high ICA levels, indicating a greater desire to support displays of heterogeneity and fluidity. So in strategies in the responses to ICA levels, I could see a lot of laughter expressing like support of the talk, awkwardness, which was usually in support of the talk, and enjoyment. Back channels of understanding were the second most deployed, especially in response to demonstrations of higher ICA levels. Meta-discursive evaluations were used twice as many times to provide evaluative feedback when the topic was being handled in a generalizing manner. So there were more demonstrations of like evaluations, people saying, oh, that's great, that's right, that's wrong, when people are actually generalizing. before then. So looking ahead, something really interesting about research is that we answer some questions, but we also find ourselves asking questions at the end, right? And we hope that those questions are going to stir up new research. Maybe I hope that I will pursue some of them, and maybe other people will. So the questions that I have for today, in other interactional contexts, would one also have a greater chance of establishing a more flexible and constructive negotiation of cultural understandings by beginning those discussions at level 2 or level 3 ICA? In language teaching, would it be helpful to teach language learners how to use pragmatic strategies that increase the ICA of negotiations, the intercultural awareness of negotiations? So that's something to think about. And displaying a high intercultural awareness, this is no longer a question, this is a reflection, okay? Displaying a high intercultural awareness means at its core, legitimizing a variety of ways of being, doing, and viewing, which are in flux, complex, and not necessarily mainstream. Developing a level 3 ICA posture is crucial to experiencing intercultural communication that promotes connection and peace. In the context of language teaching, ICA can be developed by practicing curiosity, critical thinking, and empathy through emancipatory reflections based on empirical works like this. So I'm showing you now some references in case you want to go back and screenshot them. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my work. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to listening to your questions. And hopefully I'll be able to answer some of them. and I want to hear your comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. It's great to, well, I read the text that you sent us. And also it's great to see this whole presentation again, because I remember when you presented in your qualification, it was really exciting. And then, but thank you very much and congratulations. This is such a rich work. And I was very happy to see that you, as a teacher, you closed the presentation showing some possibilities for the research, the findings, and also the questions that can be used when it comes to teaching. Because as you know, a lot of people around us here are teachers, and so then they would probably question, how can I use these, such an interesting body of knowledge to develop, for example, intercultural awareness in my classes, so especially under an ELF perspective. So congratulations. I said I was not gonna ask you any question, but I don't have questions, but I'd like to make a few comments, and they are questions, but curiosity, out of my curiosity. The first one is, at which moment did you find out that this special community would be the perfect place for you to conduct your investigation? Because you could do this, cities like London, probably you have like a plethora of, communities, different communities for you to conduct such a work. And then just out of curiosity, when did you find out, did you realize that this context, this community, church community would be the perfect place for you to conduct your research? The second question, out of curiosity, is how I think I asked you this before. How did the people from this community feel that they were actually be part of a research work when they were engaged in these conversations? And the third one, out of curiosity also, is how did Baker react? I know that he was in your committee. how did he react to, for example, to transform his theoretical framework into an analytical framework, and also adding this ground zero level that this is your finding, and it's something that you brilliantly, and I totally agree, there is this zero level, there is absolutely no awareness, or at least open awareness. So how did he react to this? If he said I believe he said something. And finally, would you say...
I'm not going to remember.
Well, but I can recapitulate.
Okay.
And the last one is, how would you associate intercultural awareness with the complexity of the topic people are talking, or you can navigate through all these levels, and the issue, the topic has nothing to do, could be any topic. So, for example, more complex topics, more sensitive topics would trigger, let's say, within the continuum, that level 3 probably would be more easily reached, or this doesn't matter. Did you get the?
I hope I remember.
Well, the first one was, how did you reach, the conclusion that was the perfect community?
Okay, okay.
How did people feel when they were well, I believe they were aware they were part of a research.
Okay, we can stop there, and then you remind me of the others later.
Yes.
Because I will forget again.
Okay.
Okay, so I joined this church as part of my own personal journey. Like I'm a Christian, so I go to church, right? So I arrived in London, I found a church. So I didn't really have in mind like finding like the people to participate in my research. By doing that, I was just finding my own church. So as I started reading and then going to church and thinking about the people that I was gonna be working with as my participants, and having meetings with Alessia every 2 weeks, discussing the text, and also sometimes talking about that. And then after about 6 months as being part of the church, I realized by getting to know them that we had a very diverse group of people, right? And we had these two groups. Well, at the time I was focusing on the Sunday lunches, and then later on I expanded to the missional community because I wasn't sure I was going to have enough data. So with the Sunday lunches, I noticed that we had really like super diverse repertoire of people, let's say, because they were coming from different countries. They had very diverse linguistic repertoires, as I said, the life experiences as well. They had lived elsewhere. So I thought that was ideal, but also because they knew me, they had known me for at least 6 months, and they would trust me more easily, I believe, than just random strangers, because it is quite invasive to have your voice recorded. I think it's not as bad as video, but it is quite invasive, right? So it's good that they knew me and they trusted me enough to know that I when I told them to believe me that I was not going to be analyzing their grammar or their English. It was more about communication. And I did mention to them that we were going to be I was going to be studying negotiations of cultural understandings, but I didn't really go into the details because I didn't want to prompt them to behave in any specific way. So none of them were from my field, so they wouldn't really know how to behave in this or that way, and I think I already said how they felt. I believe that they felt quite comfortable. I also conducted interviews, and I sent questionnaires, and they seemed very comfortable in talking about things. I also made sure, like when I had them sign the consent forms, I told them that if there was ever anything that they didn't want me to use that came up in the conversation, like because it was naturally occurring conversation, right? It wasn't prompted at all. I didn't give them a topic or anything. We were just having lunch. Like many of the recordings, we could actually hear people eating. So we were just talking. So I told them, like, if there's anything you don't want me to use, just let me know. And it's completely like scraped off. I'm not going to use it at all.
So as much as you chose the group also chose you.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. It is definitely a matter of trust, right?
Right,
Between the
right. Okay, so
researcher
then it was
and the
something
participant.
natural. You didn't consider other possibilities, right?
No, because they seemed so ideal, and because for this kind of work, like I said, you really need the participants to trust you. I thought it was going to take me a long time to find another community, and why not? So I talked to the people that were managing the lunches at the time and asked them how they felt about this. And then I asked the regulars how they felt about this, and then we opened to everyone.
Okay, good. Thank you. How about the second one? What Baker found out? I mean, what he said about all this?
He didn't really say anything specific about the level 0. I think he understood that because I had different objectives, different goals with my research. As I explained, his ICA model was created for the development of ICA in language teaching. It's very different objective than actually analyzing negotiations of cultural understanding per se, and focusing on like a line by line performance, like the way people were using their language. Because the way that Baker presented the ICA levels, he was using like big chunks, like a whole paragraph of an interview, and then he said this paragraph shows ICA level 1, this shows ICA level 2. And then there was one moment when he shows a whole conversation that was naturally occurring, and he says this conversation is level 3 because of this, this, and this. But then what I do is I look at each line, because I also want to look at the pragmatic strategies, and that demands looking at each utterance. So he was happy in general with the work. He said that he was quite impressed by the literature review, and the thesis was good. But it's weird talking about it like.
No, because I think it's very precise compared to what his proposal was different actually.
Yes.
But then I think you made it that's very analytical in one sense, almost quantitative actually. And it really looked very, very impressive. Okay, and the last one, and then I pass on to the others, is about this level of complexity related to the level of the, let's say, the issues, the topics. So would you say, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. What I can say from my findings, like I said, it is a case study, right? So I have 7 conversations. This cannot be generalized, but from my findings, I can already see that even the simplest topics can reach at some point in the conversation a level 3 ICA. Because it really depends on the way the person wants to approach that topic at that moment. And remember, I'm not analyzing the individuals, the whole person's ICA. I'm only looking at that moment, because sometimes even I don't know if you noticed, I displayed level 0 ICA, because it has to do with where you're at in the conversation, the objective of the conversation, the people involved, what you want to achieve. So it doesn't necessarily speak of your own development.
Yeah, of course not.
So, but I'm like guessing. I would guess from what I've read and from analyzing conversations, that if you have a more complex topic, something more subjective, I believe people would already approach it with a higher level of complexity as well. But it's guessing. Like I said, there is an invitation at the end of the presentation for people to try out using this methodology, using this new ICA assessment chart, to apply it to different contexts. And that would be great, like if other people did it, and we would know more about things like what you just asked.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, for example, as maybe a postdoctoral study or something, after you relax and I don't know what the future brings, is to look, at this is a very solid research for us to think of the implications to the classroom. And as I said, I was very happy that you looked at that at the end, showing that how we can use this for teaching purposes. So congratulations again, darling. And then I'll pass on to Danielle, or people here in the room for them to ask questions and make comments. And then we'll take questions and comments from the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you.
Hey, Julie. Hi, Julie. Polly has a question or a comment. I don't know. Polly, feel free.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Julie. And wow, Julie, I need to thank you for the text, or for the amazing text you sent us, and also for the inspiring presentation today.
Thank you.
The text you sent us is a summary of part of your doctoral thesis. It is possible to guess how hard you have worked together with Alessia along this period. So I must say it is inevitable to say we are really proud of you. In fact, I do not intend to imitate Professor Sávio, but I have more than one question to pose. In fact, I have two questions. Should I choose only one of them?
No, well, I don't know. It depends. Danielle, how many questions do we have? I would like to take as many as possible.
Yeah, Polly, you can ask both questions. We don't have too many questions.
Right.
No, don't worry.
The first one is a personal question.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, Julie, after all the personal and academic experiences you had in London, who is the person returning to Brazil? Tell us that.
Okay. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. But what I can say in short is that I've learned a lot, both in my personal life and professionally. I've definitely learned a lot. I will come home with many, many lessons and feeling like very enriched. I think I even mentioned to a friend this week, I'm definitely going home with more than a degree. The degree is almost on the side, like to compared to the friendships that I made and the things I learned about myself, about life. Because being here during the pandemic is also, it's been an experience, but I can't complain, right? Because I know in Brazil things are even more complicated. But yeah, I'm so extremely grateful. That's all I can say.
Great, Julie. I'm really glad to hear that. Well, the second question I have is based on what you have stated on page 3. And you also mentioned here today about that. I will read the small excerpt I'm referring to, right?
Okay.
You said that while the term negotiation of meaning has been used substantially in our research, the capitalized negotiation used here encompasses more than preempting or trying to solve understanding problems in intercultural communication.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Julie, while reading the text, capitalized negotiation and lowercase negotiation could be used interchangeably. So I could not understand the difference between them clearly. Would you please clarify that for me? The difference between capitalized negotiation and negotiation of meaning.
Oh.
You got it?
No, negotiation of meaning had been used before as if we were just negotiating things like I have something, you give me something, and then we get to an agreement, right? But what Juhua did was she complexified this process by looking at actual negotiations of cultural understandings, and she actually showed how people orient to each other. They reject some things, they embrace other things. Sometimes we orient to a certain extent, we agree, and then there is more to it than just getting to a common ground. There is actually a personal involvement in the process of categorizing that as something useful, putting this in a specific box in my own schemata in my head. It's more complex than it's usually like I guess then we usually give credit to. I think she just multi-layered the concept a little bit more, and wanted to really separate from the idea of negotiation that comes from business. Like somebody gives you something, and the other person gives you another something, and we benefit from it. There is more to that, to negotiation of understandings.
Okay, thanks, Julie. That makes sense to me. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I'm glad. Okay, thank you for your question.
Julie, we have a question from the internet, from the YouTube channel, from Milena Brum, and she asks, is it possible to give us more information about the participants beyond their nationalities and linguistic backgrounds? For example, age, occupation, reasons to be in England, and others. Interesting, because one of my examiners who works with ethnography was also, I want more. She didn't talk like this, but she wanted more information. The thing is, I didn't provide the specific information about each participant because I wanted to make sure that they were not easily identifiable. But I can tell you that we had, like, the Sunday lunches were a bit younger than the missional community. The Sunday lunches, we had people in their 20s or 30s, and I think I was the oldest, to be honest, among the people, which happens a lot. Like, I usually hang out. I think I hang out with both crowds, to be honest. Anyways, so the Sunday lunches are 20s and 30s, and the missional communities, one person I think was in their 20s, and most people were in their 40s or 50s. So it was a wide range of ages. About occupations, I don't think it is useful to tell you about the occupations because they were so diverse. Like, there were people that worked in the most different types of jobs, and I don't think it really affected the conversation much, with the exception of one conversation where there was an English teacher involved, and then one of the participants was talking to that English teacher, wanting to know what he thought about a word, and that means something, right? Because there is the weight of being an English teacher and what that represents in society. So I referred to external, like, ethnographic information whenever the participants made that relevant in the conversations, because that's what you do in CA, conversation analysis. You don't really bring in ethnographic information without the participants bringing them up, right? And I even did a bit more than that because I combined CA and ethnographic tools on purpose, using what is called not pure version of CA. I didn't use a pure version of CA. I changed it a little bit, and I could do that because my supervisor did it before. I told the examiners, I can do it because someone else did it. And by the way, it was Alessia. So yes, that's what happened. Great, and Milena has another question, Julie. She asks,
sorry, but Danielle, Milena also wanted to know the reasons why these people, how did they end up being in London? If they were born there, or if that would be interesting also.
Yes, I'm trying to think quantitatively. Like,
it's a very diverse population there.
I think most of them were not born in London. Like, it's quite rare to find somebody who was born and raised in London, to be honest. In these 4 years, I've noticed most people who are even English or British, they come from other cities around, like London, or the towns around London, and they come here to study or to work, and they stay for a while. It's a very transient place. People come and go.
But if they were born in the UK, for example?
Yeah, I would say maybe half of them were born in the UK, but maybe. So some of them, the ones that were from Africa, some of them were actually born, I think a couple was born in Nigeria, or they were born here and they lived in Nigeria and they came back. There is a lot of mobility happening. Like, that's why I classify them as super diverse, because that's where the idea comes from, like this transnationality, the fact that people move around a lot.
and they speak
Mhm.
different languages, and it's
they
really
they are
hard to tell.
multinationals, as you said, right?
Yes, it's hard to tell, like
Yeah.
in the way that we are used to,
Mhm.
what culture or what language belongs to them, or is their first language even. It's really complex, and it's great for us, like studying English as a lingua franca. I thought that the group was very ideal in
Probably
this
you
sense.
experience a lot of translanguaging in these discussions.
Yeah, probably either overtly or covertly. I think more so covertly, because I guess when people know, like lingua franca speakers, right, lingua franca users, we are used to adjusting to people around us. So when you know that you have a very diverse crowd, I think we just tend to stick to English as much as possible. But then other languages happen covertly, right? In the way that we structure our sentence, in the way we pronounce things, in the way we use vocabulary. So that is covert translanguaging.
Sorry, Danielle, for interrupting.
No, not at all. You're
As you
the
can see, I
boss.
really like talking, sorry.
Milena has another interesting question. She asks, ICA theoretical and analytical models were well explained, Julie. I agree.
Thanks.
But what was the definition of culture you used in your research?
Ooh. Sorry, I'm pouring some water. There were quite a few, but I could kind of summarize it as culture as a verb is something that I believe Street says, and Street is the name of an author. Culture as a verb, it's basically like we do culture, and culture is defined through doing and redefined through doing. So it is something that is constantly being redefined, right? Is in construction. So it's not something that can be captured in like with closed boundaries and say this is the culture of a certain group, because it's constantly changing, and everybody belongs to multiple social groups at the same time, right? So I'm part of this research team, but I'm also part of the research team here in Goldsmiths. I'm also part of a church. I'm also part of a family. I'm a woman. I'm white. I'm Brazilian. So there are many cultural groups I'm part of, and all of these things are changing constantly. So this is my culture. So there is an understanding of a personal culture. Another thing that I can say is the concept of culture that I'm using is very much connected with the complexity theory, which is exactly this. It's like a system of things that are constantly changing, and the things that are fluid, and they don't have very fixed like boundaries. So things are entering and leaving this circle and all the time, and they are also overlapping with other things. I hope it so it's no way to summarize it. It's also like ways of viewing, ways of doing, ways of being. That's a way, something that I say a few times in the thesis, like when I refer to culture, ways of doing, being, seeing, and being.
Great. Julie, I have a question now. First of all, I loved your presentation. I loved your article. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you're here. I'm very happy that you're coming back to us.
Thank you.
We're gonna throw a party when you arrive.
Me too.
we're all excited. Julie, it called my attention reading the strategies that you described, that they are very similar to those strategies used by native speakers in which are studied in spoken grammar, for example, like ellipses, head, fillers, back channels, phrase chunks, etc. Have you noticed that similarities? What do you think are the difference between those strategies being used by natives and by non-natives? Would that be a question of intensity, that non-natives use them more? What do you think?
They're just communicative strategies that we all use, like all the time. What happens is those strategies, I believe, they occur more to solve or to prevent communication problems when we have a greater difference between like cultural and linguistic backgrounds or lingua-cultural backgrounds, right? So they become more constantly used. Because the more common ground we have, the less we have to negotiate. Yeah. So, for instance, like that best friends, they can communicate with a look. They don't. They don't even have to say a word.
They finish each other's sentences.
Yeah, married couples and things. So, like parents and children. So, the more common ground you share, the less you need to negotiate. So, the more negotiation you need to do, the more strategies will be activated, will be deployed. So that's what I would say. What I don't think it matters. Well, it could influence this native speaker, non-native speaker, because it has to do with sharing at least the common ground of language, right? The same language. But then when you think of a huge country like Brazil, many times we have to negotiate with people that are from different cities, not even a different state. Right? Somebody says something we don't understand because of pronunciation. We don't understand because of the way they used grammar. We don't understand because, there are many reasons to negotiate, not only cultural differences. It can be a linguistic difference. I only focused on cultural difference, a cultural negotiation, but you can also look at negotiations of linguistic understandings and linguistic negotiation. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. I think Lou has a question, right, Lou?
I do. Julie, the first question actually is more like a matter of curiosity, I think. It's more like a curiosity thing. It is about the participants. Did they have any feedback about your research? Did you talk to them about, when you finished, did you already talk to them? How did they feel after you finished your research and, you had all your findings and everything, because you are actually a participant of the community.
Yes.
So then probably they were following you also, your, what you were doing, and probably they had questions because they had to sign a consent term or anything. But anyway, did you give any feedback for them? How did they feel, or what did they tell you about this?
You caught me, Lou, because I'm right in the middle of the process of that. Because basically, what happened is, for personal reasons, I ended up leaving the church just about the time I finished collecting the data, which was a coincidence, really, which is weird, but it happened. So I stayed in touch with many of them, but whenever I talked to them, I said, I'm going to send you guys an article that summarizes what I have found, because the thesis is too long. There's no point in sending them 243 pages.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna read it,
Yes.
And me just blurting out all the theoretical things that I showed you today, it's too much as well for people who are not in the field. So I'm just gonna send them the article as soon as it's ready. I sent you guys the draft, so it's not exactly ready. So I'm gonna change a few things there. And as soon as it's ready, I'll send them the article, and I'll send them a note trying to simplify the article in case they don't want to read the article either. And of course, a huge thank you. Whenever I have the opportunity, I publicly thank them, because without them, I wouldn't have the research, of course.
Yeah.
And I loved meeting them, and I loved them as people. Like, they were like amazing to me.
Julie, have you said goodbye to all of them already, or are you going to meet sometime?
No, I have. I met individually with everybody who wanted to meet with me, who wanted to make the time, and they contacted me to meet me before I left, and that was really
Are they
kind.
still all in London, or some of them have left?
Yeah, some have left. A couple, left to another country. Quite a few have left, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Like I said, London is like a place where people come and go all the time.
Yes.
So it's even quite hard to make friends, like long-lasting friendships, because people just leave.
Yeah. Okay. So, I have one more. Like I don't know if it is a question that it's possible to be answered right now, but it's something that gets me bothered or gets me questioning myself. Maybe I really don't know. And if you don't have any answer or you have, no problem at all, I'm posing this question more like for us to think over it, maybe in the future. But it is like when we think about the classroom, which is, something that I am always interested in, about to talk or to think of. How would it be possible to consider different levels of intercultural awareness for class planning, for example? When we think our class planning, how would it be possible to think about intercultural awareness inside our class planning or something like this? Or maybe when proposing exercises, or maybe thinking about the importance of being aware of this intercultural awareness when we are planning our classes. So that's something that makes me think about your maybe future researches that you are going to propose or talk about for other opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the conceptual side of developing ICA specifically has already been dealt with like extensively by Baker. He suggests a few resources that we can use and the way that we can use them in some articles and in his book 2015. So he talks about using like media like films and photos and different types of activities, and there are other articles as well that show people trying that out. What I want to do is to focus a little bit more, and that because
yes, I do.
I have invited you to work with me.
I've been following you, and I was asking myself this while you were.
I have invited you to work with me to test out some of these strategies that we found, teaching those to students, and then we have a whole project already in the works to see if it makes really any difference when people are talking with people of different cultural backgrounds and when they are negotiating, meaning if learning those strategies in the classroom really makes a difference. So that's something we want to check. But that will probably be a 1 year long project. And I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. Apparently, I didn't even take a break. But when you finish and you find yourself with questions, I guess you want to find the answers, right? So
yeah, sure.
I want to see, can we actually do this? Like, if we teach these, are we going to see interesting results, like in how the students actually use those strategies?
And actually, it might be kind of a challenge, because when you think about your context of research, it's a very diverse. So people are from different cultures, different lingua cultures, actually. They are different histories and cultures and everything. And when we talk about the context like Brazilian context, for example, think about our classrooms, the students are more like, the cultural context are more similar, actually, right? Even though they have different cultures, different possibilities, but they don't have different, for example, mother tongues. Most of them have the same mother tongue. So some things are very similar when you negotiate cultures, for example. They have more similarities, I would say, maybe.
Yes. Among Brazilians.
And maybe these levels, that would interfere a little bit on the levels of intercultural awareness. I don't know, but I'm just asking myself too.
Yeah, in the classroom, I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking before, separately. In the classroom, I believe that the possibilities or the necessity for negotiation might be a bit not as common, if compared to putting the students to talk to people from other countries, as we plan to do in the project. So yeah, I guess we'll have to create somewhat artificial situations, like prompting them with topics, prompting them with themes or something, to help them practice the pragmatic strategies and really check if that's working and more naturally occurring without any prompting when they are interacting with people from other countries. Not because people from the same country don't have different cultures. We talked about this, right?
Yes.
Definitely, that's not an issue. But because the lingual culture is more similar than it would be with somebody who has many other languages, probably.
Languages, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I was thinking, actually.
Just a bit less, I would say, considerably less, but not because of the cultures, but because of the language.
Okay, nice.
Thank you.
I don't have other questions, but I think there's another question from Milena and in the YouTube. Did you get this question?
No, I didn't see it. Sorry.
Yeah, there's
no,
one
there is
more.
one. There is one at the end.
She's
Yes.
curious to learn how age or educational level may impact LA levels.
Okay.
Levels.
Intercultural awareness.
Intercultural awareness.
Yeah, she meant IA, intercultural awareness.
Yeah, IA.
ICA.
Age and educational levels.
I don't know.
Yes,
we
it's
will
just
have
like
to find out. We need. That's the thing. We are looking at things like that. It's just because I'm so used to, like, with ELF, we don't really. It's impossible to generalize things, right? Because it's so impossible. It's difficult to predict people's lingual cultural backgrounds. So whether the age plays a role in it, I don't know. It would have to be a very complex and long research to determine that. And like I said, with this case study, my specific findings are just examples of the things that people might find when they use the methodology and the theoretical framework that I developed from Baker's, you know. So the point of the case study is to test the theory, is to expand the theory. It's not to provide findings that can be generalized, especially in humanities. Maybe if you're talking about, I don't know, medicine or something like that, maybe they're more generalizable.
Okay, I don't think we have any other questions from the channel, right? And no more here, but we still have some time, Julie, and then I would like to ask you, what are your future academic plans?
You're putting me on the spot.
No, because I wanted you to come here, but then you betrayed us and decided to go to Minas.
Yeah, I know. It is heartbreaking in this sense because I love the team at UFBA. It would be great, like working with you in a way would be awesome, right? But I'm in a moment in my life, I don't really see myself living in Salvador. That's the only reason.
But you know, I will invite you to lots of things for you to do. Don't think that you're going to be, free from us.
No, I don't want to be.
Be ready to participate in examining boards and give presentations. So then you are going to suffer.
Okay. That doesn't sound like suffering. I really want to be engaged in academic stuff, and of course, I'll start applying for jobs, and trying to join some sort of recruitment process.
Right.
Around there, around where I'm at, like around Minas or São Paulo, the countryside of São Paulo.
Yeah.
For now, I just can't picture myself living in a big city that is not very safe. That's really the main reason. But I like the fact that I'll be in Brazil, that I can come and go as I please if I have, the money for the ticket. Because right now I'm limited. I'm not really allowed to travel because of the regulations of the scholarship.
Yes.
So I will already feel like a free woman. I'll be able to see you guys whenever. In December, by the way, I'll be there. The 15th of December, I'm coming and I'll stay until just about New Year's. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up and meet for a coffee or something.
Sure. And then, of course, it would be a pity not having you continue your academic, let's say, profession, because I mean, as I said, and I repeat, you are brilliant, and then you want to, even if you don't join us, there'll be lots of opportunities for you with a PhD, you know, in terms of there'll be concursos and not only here, but, you know, wherever you are, São Paulo, Minas, and I'm sure we can do lots of things together, writing, participating in conferences. So you have a lot to offer, Julie. I'm sure it would be great to have you back. It would be really nice.
Thank you so much. You guys are so kind. Like, that's one of the reasons I love this group, other than providing me with these discussions that I love. They're so interesting. You guys are like a huge support, like a support group in a way, almost academic therapy.
No, and then as I said, you are maybe one of the first ones to begin the group with me.
Yes.
And I remember, I think you were still doing your undergrad, no?
Yes. It was so funny, Sávio. I don't know if you remember, when I finished my BA, my bachelor's in English, you told me you should apply for a PhD in Southampton.
Yes,
really? And I said, yes, you have been doing research. So yeah, I had been doing research for 2 years. So I applied and I was accepted. So I was accepted with a BA. And I started looking for scholarships in 2011. I didn't find any until 2015, any that would actually cover a PhD. Because they had to cover everything, right? I'm like, I can't pay for anything, people. So I found this one that I have now in 2015. But then I was missing one document. And then I was disclassified at the very beginning because I didn't have a document. I didn't have my transcript for the master's at the time. So they disclassified me. And then 2016, I tried again. And then, yay, I had all the documents. And then the results
and then at that time you were already
2017.
You had finished your MA, right?
Yes, I had just finished in 2016. So 2017, July, I got the results. It was a whole year of competition. Many stages. It's really hard. And
share with us when this little girl appeared in Southampton to have a meeting with Jennifer Jenkins in the
I went to
Global
see her.
Englishes, the Center for Global Englishes.
I went to see her in 2011, just with my BA. And I was like, so I want to do my PhD here, and I have this idea for my research. And we had a half an hour meeting in her office, and I told her about my idea for the research. She was very nice. And then after that, we went together to the meeting where Alessia was presenting, actually. She was still in Southampton. She was presenting with a colleague. And it was very interesting. I met Alessia for the first time in 2011. And in 2012, we went to Istanbul together, remember? A bunch of other people. And 2013, we went to Rome to present as well another paper. I went to Rome with you as well. And 2015,
and then this never stopped, right?
I know. 2015, I also went to see Jenkins again, and then I talked to Alessia because CAPES was asking me for 2 supervisors, so I had to talk to both. And that's when I told Alessia about the research team in Brazil.
Yes.
And I told her about you, and she was like, Sávio, I've seen him. I remember him. And then I gave her.
Yeah, we met. Actually, we talked in Rome a little, and then after that, she became a great friend and a wonderful, let's say, I would say a collaborator with our group, and also, we had a wonderful time participating in classes, within the MA, and we had the students here with us. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had to interrupt the program, but I hope we can, have that, back when things get, to when things get easier to everybody, right? But it's really, it's, you know, it shows that the world goes round and round, and then things happen. If we really, set our hearts and go. So if you didn't insist, for example, and I remember telling you, Julie, no problem, we can try again and again, and I'm sure you'll get it. And you did, and here we are sharing this special moment that you come back with your PhD under your arm. You see, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We have to
Thank you,
have
guys.
a great
Thank
celebration. You. Okay.
Yeah, and I really
yes,
appreciate
Lou.
all your help in this process.
Lou, I think Lou waved her hand. No? Yes, the mic is off.
No, I just applauded. She was like,
okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, anybody else? Polly, anybody? Vanessa, Arnon, Natalia, would you like to say something before we stop for the picture?
Oh yes, I'd like to say some few words. First, congratulations, you, Juliana, for your brilliant work, your brilliant research, because you deal specifically with the social and cultural aspect in language. It's very important. And I appreciate when I read your article, in terms of observing the correlation you do with the language, culture, and the aspects that are constructed at the moment of speaking. People participate, you bring the conversation as the basis in which people meet each other to make the meaning of things. And I remember when you talk about the collaboration, that one collaborate each other in terms of speech acts. And I have a question. Do you think it is interesting you include the speech acts in this process of language culture and language cultural?
Can you exemplify which speech acts you have in mind to correlate with this?
Sorry, repeat, please.
Can you exemplify the speech acts that you have in mind when you say this, that they could maybe be correlated?
In my opinion, for example, I have some doubts if the performative speech, for example, because I understood in one passage of your article that people can construct meaning at the moment of speaking. And so speech acts deal with one of these aspects that people say something that happens at the moment of speaking, something that's only promised to take place then. And so I'd like to know if the speech act series should be included in this situation brought to EFL process, if it runs.
And that's a broader question that I can answer, I think, if you can bring speech acts to EFL. But what I can say about the construction of meaning, and I think I explained quickly in the article draft that I sent you, is that I actually believe that in conversations, we are negotiating understandings, because meaning is something that's constructed with the community. It's a bit larger than the people interacting, there's 2 people, 3 people interacting. For this interaction to create a change that will affect the larger community, it would have to go through a longer process. Like people having influence, and then this one day ending up like going to the TV, and then more people talking about it, and then one day it ends up going to the dictionary, and one day ends up going to the grammar. So in terms of meaning making, I know that we use this expression, but I believe that what we are making there is just understandings. Like we are negotiating understandings, not exactly meaning. I know that the phrase is more used as negotiation of meaning, but I contest that in my thesis. I say I prefer to use negotiation of understandings, because we don't change the meaning of things in one conversation. We change our understandings of the meaning, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Lou says here that we should invite Jenny to be part of this. I mean, to talk
Yeah,
to us.
why not? Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I have already mentioned something to her, but then I remember that a couple of years ago, she was busy. But then I know, and then she was about to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that she's always busy, but she's also always so open, you know. So
I can
to
contact
talk and
her.
to have this kind of a conversation. So we should try. Why not?
No, that would be great. That would be great. Yes, for sure. And of course, if she's okay with the the moment, if she's not too busy, I'm sure she would love to be with us.
Maybe a Q&A. I don't know.
Yeah. Remember that she wrote the preface of Priscilla's book, remember?
Yeah, that was really cool.
So,
yes.
No, Jenny is a wonderful person. So I think, don't worry. I have lots of names in mind.
Cool.
Okay, people. I think, Daniel, we can stop broadcasting and just wait for us to have our last picture. But anyway, thank you very much, Julie, once again for this wonderful talk, for sharing this wonderful work with us. And when you can, you already have it. The final version is already available. So then maybe later you can tell everybody where to find the final version. And I want to congratulate you. And then I don't know if Alessia will see this, but I have to and I told her already that we shall congratulate the advisor, because it's it's a forehand work. So it's brilliant, and she is also a wonderful person to be working with. Everybody knows. So then you were very lucky. So and I want to thank the ones who are here in the room. I want to thank the ones who came and joined us in the Multilingual Cafe.
Yes.
And we meet at the end of September with another special guest that I will probably tell you later, because I have a few ideas. And because it's summer in some places still, and a lot of people are on vacation.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, when September comes, life goes back to normal, to the other part of the world. So then I will try to contact this person in Thailand and another one in Nigeria, so we can have as much diversity as possible. All right. But thank you very much, Julie. And then you can close with your final words. And of course, in person, I have to say that I wish you a great trip back to Minas, and we look forward to seeing you in person to celebrate this moment, with or without masks on. So we are going to celebrate your victory, because it's our victory.
Yes,
So I feel very proud of you, and as I feel very proud of all of you who come around us and work so beautifully together with us. So congratulations again, and thank you very much, Daniel, for taking care of the technicalities, and Lou also. And Julie, you close, please.
What a huge responsibility. Thank you guys again for the great questions, and I hope I answered them to your satisfaction. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to share with you my thesis and to interact with you, because for a long time we work by ourselves, and this is really, really fun hearing what other people think and the questions that they have. And of course, ILF Brazil is very special to me and will always be. It's the place where I became a researcher, and I hope it's the place where I will continue to be a researcher.
Now you
no
are
matter
a
where I
world
am.
researcher. You'll be everywhere.
Oh, who knows? But that doesn't change anything. So
Yeah.
I'm just grateful because, like you said, it's our victory. We work together, and we really rely on each other in many moments. We need each other, right? So it's okay, and it's great that we need each other. And I'm really grateful for this group. And thank you guys for watching as well. My friends who are probably watching from other countries and other places, and people who will watch later. Thank you very much for watching us. And if you want to leave a question and you're watching after we finish this, please just leave a question, and Danielle or Luciana will relay the question to me, and I'll try to answer. Okay? So yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye. See you in September.
Pronto, encerrado.